What you see, therefore, depends on the way your senses are constructed. You have certain kinds of sense organs, and these sense organs evoke the kind of universe appropriate to them. It's not necessarily the way things are, because there is no way that things are apart from their impact or better relationship with some kind of perceiver. Their impact
Good evening. Welcome to the Downwards Academy. I'm your professor for the evening, Mr. Justin. Hope you're having a good week so far. Today we're going to be getting into chaos. A little bit of chaos and order. Chaos and order. And how on the surface things seem opposite. Like they would bring about what we don't want. But when we lean into order, it actually brings us freedom. So the general idea is that chaos is actually a trap. And order is where we find freedom. Thank you, Uncle Guns, for posting my links. I really appreciate that. Mr. Iceberg, what do you got here already? Would you say that the chaos aspect is the reason women's relationships with a bad boy archetype don't last, burns bright, but ultimately has no longevity? Yeah, that is related to it. Absolutely. Yep. Yes, it is. Let me turn down my audio a little bit. I'm like blowing out my own eardrums with my own voice. Yeah, so that's what we're going to be leaning into this evening. And the other interesting thing about order, finding freedom, is that with order, we are no longer subject to the influences of the things that can take us off the path, right? So, for example, let's say somebody is trying to lose weight and they go hard and very strict on maintaining a specific diet. Some people might look at that and go, you're being too hard on yourself, that you are being too restrictive, too controlling with your diet. But then again, at the same time, they are not controlled by the influence of junk food, right? They're not controlled. Like when they walk by the soda aisle, they're not like, oh shit, like I really want soda. Like it's not even in their mind. And the other person who doesn't have control, they're just drawn right into it. And they're like, yeah, I'm gonna go drink some soda. And they're controlled by this. Okay, so the same thing happens with a bunch of our other things in our lives, impulses, desires, and things of that nature. So let's take a look. All right, so this lecture is called Rules, Rituals, and Authority, and Why Chaos Repels Desire, and ultimately women. So there's this belief that has quietly infected modern dating culture, and it sounds reasonable on the surface, and it even almost sounds enlightened. And the belief is this, that the less defined a relationship is, the more passionate it is. That rules are constraints, and that structure is control. And that the man who lets everything be fluid, undefined, and open is the man who's giving his woman the greatest gift, which is her freedom. And it sounds good. It sounds evolved, right? It sounds woke. And it's completely, demonstrably wrong. And this is what we're going to get into. I'm going to show you why this whole idea is completely wrong. And this is what's happening in culture right now. Like this is part of what the reason why things are so fucked up, because generally speaking, women were like, hey, I want my sexual freedom. I want freedom. I want to be able to do whatever I want. There's no order. There's no rhyme or reason. I just kind of go about how I feel. And the guys are kind of just following that. They're saying, okay, I'll be fluid too. I'll be undefined. I will give you the freedom that you want. And in the hopes of being able to be included in that freedom. And I even know a coach, like, and I've butted heads with him a couple of times, and he's like, I don't care. Like, as long as I'm getting laid, I don't care. And I'm saying, looking at that and like, okay, but that's just looking at the world, and it stops at the end of your dick. Like, that's not that really understanding that the choices that you make as a man matter. Like, there's a trickle down effect that permeates the rest of society. It might be a teeny tiny stream for like each guy, but you multiply that by thousands, then you have, just a messed up culture, right? Like, there was this what was it, this folk singer, his name was Utah Phillips, and he said, it's the path of least resistance that makes the river crooked, right? And so it, like, a stream of water always runs straight until it hits something, right? It hits a rock, and then it goes around the rock, and then it goes this way, and then it hits a stick, and then it goes around the stick, and it just keeps going. And then before you know it, you've got a river that looks like, the Mississippi River, which I believe is like really crazy, right? Or there's rivers um, in South America that are like really like S curves and craziness. And that's because water will always hit the path of least resistance. And that's what makes it crooked. So this is what guys are doing. Guys are saying, hey, you know what? I'm just going to take the path of least resistance. I'm just going to sit back and, hey, if like pussy comes to me, great. Like, that's all I want. And really that's ruining the whole structure, right? Because it's basically applying no structure. It's not applying any sort of order. And it's just basically following the the unbridled whims of women. And that's looking to be problematic, I think. And I think a lot of men are realizing this. So they're just kind of like like accepting what is, and then trying to reap the best benefits from it that they possibly can. It's like, so it's a strategy of not winning, but just trying one's best not to lose, which is terrible. It's a terrible way to go about things. So, like I said, hold on. Like I said, these guys are saying, hey, let's laissez-faire. Like, that's the kind of attitude we've got. And like I said, it's completely and demonstrably wrong. So some of the in contrast, some of the most erotically charged and deeply bonded and emotionally secure relationships in existence are built on opposite foundations: clear rules, consistent rituals, and acknowledged authority, such as what's found in consensual power dynamic relationships. Not despite those things, but because of them. That's why they're strong. So today I'm going to dismantle the myth that structure and desire are at odds with one another. And I'm going to show you through psychology, evolutionary biology, through the lived reality of both conventional relationships and explicitly structured power exchange dynamics, that chaos doesn't liberate desire. It actually suffocates it. So we're going to cover 4 pillars, okay? What chaos actually does to attraction, the power of rules, the underrated magic of ritual, and what real authority looks like versus the counterfeit version that most guys perform. All right. So let's get into it. When most people hear chaos in a relationship, they picture dramatic arguments or unpredictable blowups, lots of drama. But that's not the kind of chaos I'm really talking about. That exists, but that's not what we're getting into. The chaos that kills desire is actually quieter than that. It's the chaos of ambiguity, the chaos of a man who doesn't know what he wants. And if he does know what he wants, he's not even vocalizing it, or who changes his standards depending on his mood, or his mood as it's related to her mood, or who communicates so inconsistently that the woman in his life is always recalibrating, always trying to figure out who she's dealing with today. And I've seen this firsthand where the guy is just constantly shifting. He's very moody, and those moods are dangling on a hair trigger. So any shift of the breeze, and he's either elated or exploding with anger or crying. It's almost like guys have become what is it? What's that? Bipolar. It's almost like guys have become bipolar. I had a friend some years like after I graduated college, and he had bipolar disorder. And the dude was just he would just like flip flop between moods. It was really bizarre, and I think he was also manic depressive. But it was intense. Now, I'm not saying it's that strong with guys, but they just shift with the breeze. They're not consistent at all in their mental framework or in their emotional stability. And so could you like do you blame women for like not wanting to be can you blame women for not being gravitationally drawn to men who are like that? Especially when it's a wide sea of them. Like of course not, right? And then it's mixed in as, mommy problems, within the men, like looking to be soothed so that he can feel like he matters because of whatever sort of attention and affection that she gives him. It becomes disgusting because you can see him just like lapping it up, like as if it's like the last meal he's ever going to have. And then if it goes away, like if she's just maybe out of touch for a little while because of this or that is going on in her life, his emotion or like his emotions and his nervous system are in shambles. He can't handle it. It's almost like, oh no, like where's mom? She left. Like, is she gonna come home? Like ever? Like almost like a dog. Like when you say, like, okay, bye, I'm going to work. And then they get worried and they bark at the door, like, no, 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 come back. I love you. And then they wait all day. And then when you see them at the end of the day, they're like, oh, thank goodness you're back. I thought you had left for good. And then they do this every single day. It's like the separation anxiety. And I think like a lot of guys are operating in a very similar emotional state. It's awful. Yeah, it's really bad. So so that kind of chaos that guys have is relationship poison. And here's why. Attraction is fundamentally a response to perceived value and definition. So a man with no edges, no principles, no limits, no consistent identity is essentially formless. And you cannot be attracted to something that is formless. And this is for everybody. Like just formlessness doesn't draw people in because it's ambiguous. And humans naturally have a certain level of distrust to the unknown. Right. This is why when like way back in the day, when we were like I don't know, Neanderthals or whatever, and they're like, hey, like, the animal that we want to eat ran into that dark cave. This is like before discovering fire. And they're looking in the cave like, fuck, I don't know. Like I can't see in there. I don't know what's in there, so it's natural for us to doubt and have distrust for the ambiguous, for the unknown. And when a woman sees that, like either just he's unknown because he's constantly shifting, he has no definition. He's not clear to her because he's always shifting to do his best to maintain his finger hold on her attention. And so he tries out like all these different tactics or whatever. And this is the failure of the PUA, right? Now, not everything that the PUAs have devised or come up with or discovered is crap. But what I have noticed is a pattern of basically doing whatever it takes in order to remain in the field of her attention so that you could possibly leverage that more and more and like wedge into it deeper and deeper to the point where now she's giving herself to him sexually. And that to me just sets a terrible precedent, right? It just says, I'm not solid. You can't count on me to be consistent in identity, in behavior, in mood, like the way I think, the way I communicate. I'm always going to be shifting. And then that is going to make her shifty, right? Because women are mirrors to us, especially emotionally. And And then that's going to make her feel unsettled because you are undefined. You are inconsistent. You're shifting. Like she's like, "Oh, I don't want to do that," and you're like, "Okay, yeah, I don't want to do it either. I was just joking." Like, and guys that I'm coaching are like this, where she's like, "I don't want to do this," and he's like, "Okay, like how about we do this?" And it's like, "No, okay, that's fine. I don't really want to do that either. Let's do this." And so it's constantly shifting, shifting, shifting. And what that does is it just kind of keeps her in her own world and not integrated with you. Okay, because to integrate, for a woman's energy to integrate with a man's, what's required is trust. Like whether you're going into power dynamics or just regular relationship shit, trust is necessary for her to allow her energy to fuse into yours. Right. So if you're flexible or too flexible, if you are inconsistent, if your moods are constantly shifting, your viewpoints and things are constantly shifting, your identity seems amorphous, that's going to not allow for trust to develop. And her energy is just going to stay on her side of the street. And that's it. And the funny thing is that two people, a man and a woman, can function this way for quite a while. And they can actually be together but not actually be together because for whatever reason, like maybe he's good looking, or maybe he's popular, or maybe he's got a lot of money, or he's got a great lifestyle. There's plenty of reasons why the girl would stay with a guy who's like that but not be connected to him. So so this is important to understand, because a woman can be with a man but not actually be with him, not really be with him. And then a woman can be with a man, like really be connected to him and not even be in his physical vicinity, where she's just energetically connected. So don't be thrown off by what you see. Okay. It's just a lot of illusions, really. All right. So moving on. So, like I said, attraction is fundamentally a response to perceived value and definition. A man with no edges, no principles, no limits, no consistent identity is essentially formless. And you can't be attracted to formlessness. You can't lean on it. Well, she can't lean on it. Well, anybody, if we're just getting out of like man woman dynamics, you can't press against it. And you certainly can't surrender to it. And then think about it. Like a lot of these guys, they're looking at her behavior and then thinking there's something wrong with her and scratching their heads or getting upset and saying, "Why won't she submit to me? Why won't any woman submit to me? Why is no woman just gravitationally drawn towards me?" And without considering of themselves, because that would hurt too much. And B, if they did, they wouldn't even know what to do with it. Like if they just sat there and then realized, like, "Oh shit, the problem is likely me." But then they would be stuck because they wouldn't know what to do. They would be like, "Well, shit. Well, like, how do I solve that?" Okay, that's like shout out to Alan Watts. That's like trying to touch the tip of your finger with the very same finger. That which needs to be analyzed and fixed is the analyzer or the viewer. So that's tough, right? For the doctor to heal themselves when they're sick, you need somebody else on the outside. Okay, a mentor, a coach, a family member, just somebody who knows better than you, who can see you more clearly than you can, right? So think about it from a neurological standpoint. The brain's threat detection system, the amygdala, is constantly scanning the environment for signals of safety versus danger. In romantic contexts, predictability doesn't mean boring. It means safe enough to open. A woman cannot fully relax into a man she cannot read. When his behavior is inconsistent, when his word means something today and nothing tomorrow, when his standard shifts, depending on whether he wants to avoid conflict, her nervous system registers that as low level threat signal. And here's the critical thing: anxiety and desire cannot fully coexist. Okay, now this kind of touches on what what uh, what Iceberg was talking about with the bad boys and that sort of stuff. Okay, like it draws in, but there's a complete lack of relaxation. It's just roller coasters of anxiety, right? Like that's not good. That doesn't allow her to open. And people like uninitiated, the uninitiated men, they would look at that and go, yeah, but like she's doing all this crazy sexual stuff. She's blowing up his phone. She's really after him. And it's because it's full of chaos. Okay. Chaos has a lot of energy to it, which can then be utilized or transmuted to this activity or that activity, this kind of behavior, that kind of behavior. But she's not submitted to him. Okay. Like submission, surrender, it actually brings about a steady state of calm because it comes from a root of certainty. Okay. The more certain that she feels of her safety, okay, it allows her to open and soften more. And the more she softens, the more liquid she becomes, the less attached to her identity she is, less attached to her will she is. Okay. But don't confuse being stable and having a container with being a nice guy. Okay. We all know, we've gone over this enough times. The nice guy disorder is chaotic. Does not bring about order. Okay. It's sneaky chaos. So when a woman is chronically uncertain about where she stands, what the relationship is, what kind of man she's dealing with, whether what was said yesterday still holds today, her nervous system stays in vigilance mode. And a nervous system in vigilance mode does not produce desire. It produces management behavior. And it can produce sexuality. But check this out. She's not really fucking out of desire. She's fucking out of fear. That's a terrible motivation because now you're connecting being scared with sexual activity. And that is only acceptable, say, like in my world, where it's controlled, it's deliberate and well thought out. You know, like say like a CNC scene, like a consensual non-consent. That stuff is extremely well thought out. It's planned like crazy. And you both go over it. And then you get into the scene, right? Or the play, and you immerse yourselves into it. And to her, it feels as real as it possibly can. And so yes, it's got that real desire, and she does feel a sense of fear, but it's with this underlying layer of trust that underneath it all, you're in control. And so that's the only time that I think that fear and sexual desire can go hand in hand. In normal, like regular, outside of the lifestyle contexts, the fear and anxiety that she feels doesn't produce real desire. It produces hunger that's based around fear and like just severe uncertainty. And guys think like, oh, yeah, that's what you got to do. And you even hear PUA guys talk about this. They say, send her on a roller coaster. She likes the roller coaster of emotions. Well, yes, that's true, but it's not based out of any sort of structure. It's based out of chaos. And she's not going to feel free. Within a structured power dynamic, you can actually create the same feelings based around your structure, because guess what? She's not going to follow it perfectly. You know, like I've got a very good sub. She's on point. Like she's a very good girl, but she's not perfect. And she falls off sometimes. She makes a mistake sometimes. She forgets things sometimes. And just that, and knowing that she is acutely aware of my approval and disapproval and the fact that I can punish or reward, that in itself produces the same, well, not the same, but very similar feelings. But it's not based out of chaos. It's based out of order. And at the end of the day, that underlying foundation, there's trust there. So she knows that I'm not just going to vanish, you know, like a bad boy might. Okay. That there's a reason for everything that I'm doing. So so the feelings are similar, but the entire context is completely different. So don't think that. So when guys say that, like, yes, women, they love the engagement from a roller coaster and a variety of different emotions. That's absolutely true. But to think that that can only be done by, um, like fucking her and then ghosting her and then coming back a couple days later and then being really nice one day and then being a real jerk the next day, like that's a terrible way to go about this, because you're not actually going to, like, yeah, she'll be stuck to you, but guys who don't know any better, they think that's actually her really being attached to you. That's not. She's white knuckle gripping out of fear. She's not going to turn liquid. She's too stiff. You're just going to get, you know, survival sex, and that's about it. So she becomes, with this management, like this vigilance that's like turned on basically the entire time. She starts managing him instead of wanting him. Okay, like whether he's chaotic and his moods are all over the place, or he's ambiguous, or he's very wishy-washy, he's too supplicating, he's too flexible, or he's too, say, like too edgy chaos, right? All of that is her then shifting into a management system for him instead of desiring him. She becomes his emotional regulator at that point. She stops being his woman and essentially starts being his mother. Now, whether she's outwardly communicating to him is irrelevant. It's the shift is internal for her, because basically through the chaos and the anxiety and the vigilance that turns on, then from there, she has to assume a position of more control so that she doesn't go from day to day feeling fucking crazy. So she even starts like having internal dialogues with sometimes. So if she's not telling him overtly, like this is, kind of like mothering him that way, it'll be happening internally. So it's part of a state shift. Plus, no doubt there's going to be like arguments that are in her head. Like I know you've done this before, where you want to tell somebody off, or you're in a discussion or an argument, and it didn't happen, or it didn't happen the way you wanted it to, but you carried it on in your own head the way you'd rather it to have gone down. They do this as well, but at a higher rate. And so with someone who's chaotic, it triggers all of that shit. It turns her into a regulatory system like a mom is. All right. And then the more time she spends there, the more and more she's going to resent everything. She's going to resent how she feels. She's going to resent herself. She's going to resent you. And she's going to resent the dynamic or relationship or the situationship that she has. It's going to be awful. And then all she's going to do is fucking complain about it to her friends. And that's like what we have here. Sure, there might be like so-called alphas in the world where the top 10% are getting girls or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Which is a complete farce, okay? Because I'm not top 10%, so I don't know what the fuck what that's all about. But because they're not, like, men are just typically not good leaders today. They've not been trained. They haven't had the inquiry to learn how to influence and how to lead properly, how to teach. That even top 10%ers are just offering chaos, but women are drawn to them, in the case that that's actually real. So this is why the so-called mystery advice that circulates in men's spaces so often backfires. There's a crucial difference between being intriguing and being unknowable. An intriguing man has depth. You want to discover more about him. And an unknowable man has no center. He's like out of focus. He just keeps you anxious. One generates curiosity and the other generates cortisol. And it's so funny, like how that's become like a thing, like people talking about cortisol. It's really weird. Like I heard like a joke, like making fun of someone and saying like they're cortisol maxing. It's very strange. Yeah, but it's true. Like it's a really dangerous chemical to have throughout your system. So what women respond to What humans respond to at a deep biological and psychological level is a man who is firmly defined. And this is for men and women alike. Like men, when we come across someone who is very well defined, their edges are sharp and clear. We're drawn to them. Like our attention is drawn to them, even if we don't like them. Like whatever they represent or whatever they're talking about, it's just having those clearly defined edges where it just draws our attention. And and so don't think that like you're immune to this, okay? And women are the same. So a man who knows what he wants, who says what he means, who holds to what he says, he's got strong principles, he doesn't waver on things, he doesn't contradict himself, who doesn't crumble under social pressure or emotional manipulation, who creates a container around the relationships that he has that is clear enough and strong enough to actually step inside. That container does not appear by accident. It is built deliberately, consistently through three things: rules, rituals, and authority. So let's look at each one. All right, let's start with the rules. All right, let me be clear about what I mean because the word carries a lot of baggage, like depending on who you ask. When I say rules, I'm not talking about a man handing his woman a list of demands. I'm not talking about surveillance, restriction, or control for its own sake. I'm talking about the behavioral standards that define who a man is, and by extension, what the relationship is. In a general relationship context, most rules are never stated out loud, and they don't need to be. They emerge organically from the character of the man leading the dynamic. He doesn't respond to emotional manipulation by capitulating. He doesn't renegotiate his values to keep the peace. He doesn't tolerate contempt. He doesn't dish it out. He keeps his word, not because someone is holding him accountable, but because his word is him. And these are not rules, not written on a whiteboard. They're expressed through consistency. And that consistency is the bedrock of masculine authority. He's the psychological mechanism at work. Every time a man upholds his standards, every time he doesn't fold, he doesn't chase, he doesn't abandon his frame to manage someone else's reactions, he's transmitting a signal that says, I know who I am. My identity is not up for negotiation. And if you want to be in my world, this is what that world looks like. That's not controlling, that's being grounded. And genuinely grounded men are extraordinarily rare, which is why they are extraordinarily attractive. Now, explicitly dominant sub relationships, rules become formalized. A dominant may establish basic behavioral expectations or very specific ones. How his submissive addresses him in private or in public, all right? And this is where things called honorifics, okay? So like sir or madam in the case if it's a female dominant, sir, my lord, my liege, daddy. There's so many. Like I've heard so many unique ones that it's just like whatever he wants to hear or whatever she really wants to call him, and it's okayed by him. Um, there's like a whole myriad of these titles, okay, called honorifics. I've not like heard or seen my name written or spoken by my submissive ever, except this one time. And it was a big misunderstanding. But she had made a mistake. And it was just with the use of my name within a research paper. And it's understandable, right? Because typically on a research paper, like putting someone's full name there is like a sign of respect. Okay. In like many other cultures. In the United States, it's like Professor, John Smith. Okay. But their title is really important. Like if it's a scientist or a teacher or something like that. And so I had seen her write my name, my full name on this document that we had worked on together. And it really just kind of threw me back. I was like, holy shit, like I've never seen her write my full name before. And I was like, wait a second, that's against the rules. Like as surprising as it was, it's against the rules. and it had to be addressed. And so it was part misunderstanding, but part also not placing what the rules are above all else. Okay. But anyways, so like I was saying, how the submissive addresses him in private or public, how she carries herself in public, what she asks permission for, how she cares for her body and her mind. These rules are not punishments. They are not power trips. They are expressions of investment. They communicate, I have thought carefully about who you are, who I am, and what I want to build between us. I care enough to be intentional about it. And that's the thing. Like, I've experienced some bits of friction in dynamics, and I had to reassure the girl that if I didn't care, I wouldn't pay attention to her at all. Like, it would just be out of sight, out of mind. And when she's with me, then that's when I would engage with her. But if you're on my radar and I'm kind of like vetting you to be in a structured dynamic with me, you bet your ass I'm going to be paying attention to every little thing you do. And if I need to correct things, it's because I want you to be here. Like, I want you to be part of this thing. So I'm weeding out or redirecting certain behaviors, words, actions, beliefs, internal problems, trying to make everything as like like a well-oiled machine as possible. Okay. And here's the thing: machines, like all machines, require maintenance. You can't just, well, unless you've got a Honda like me, where you just throw oil in it and it's good. But most machines, like, moving parts, they have to be monitored and occasionally repaired or adjusted or what have you. And it's the same thing with a dynamic. Like, you just don't set it and forget it, right? Especially since that we're even more problematic than machines. Okay, we're not laser die cut. You know what I'm saying? We're organic, and we're flawed in that sense. Um, Not necessarily flawed, but in the sense that we don't just have a programming and we just stick to it, right? For like the end of time. Um, we have to be reminded of things. We have to be trained for consistency. And so, yes, if you have a dynamic, you are basically monitoring things constantly, like as dominant, constantly. And she will be monitoring things as well, but just from a different perspective. She'll be monitoring your well-being, but from below. Like, she's making sure you're okay. She's watching for your emotional states. She's watching for your health. Um, she's just wanting to, especially if it's like service oriented, she's just wanting to make sure that like you're good so that you can operate well. And then she's also monitoring herself, right? Because she's got to keep her own mind in mind, to be like monitoring herself, to seeing like, okay, are my behaviors like in alignment with what is being developed by him? So it's work. Like, it's a lot of fun. It's the most engaging. It's the most fulfilling type of relationships I've ever had in my life. But there's really no off days. Like, it really isn't, because like slip ups or inconsistencies can lead to setting precedents, and they can lead to doubt and all sorts of stuff. So you really have to do your best to kind of stay on top of things all the time. But here's the difference: if, like they say, if you enjoy your work, you never actually work a day in your life. um, if it feels like a burden, then this lifestyle is not for you. Then having a structured DS relationship is just not for you. And I've met guys who are like that. Like, I explained it to them, and they're like, "Man, that just sounds like a lot of work." And then, but to me, it doesn't feel like a lot of work. I enjoy it. Like, I enjoy like turning on and engaging more than just the bare minimum and my dick. Like, that's like, I like thinking about how she's thinking and about how I'm thinking, and watching for patterns of behavior, and seeing like where I can leverage things and have fun. right? Because like within structure, you can utilize the structures and the levers that are present in order to have a lot of fun. Especially if you've got a little bit of sadism in you, uh, playful sadism. There's just so much that you can do and mess around with that, you know, typically are just not as easy in like regular relationships. All right, so let me. I just wanted to explain that what you're all that control and the rules and the rituals and preferences and all that stuff, it's there in order to build something stronger. Now, of course, this is not only like this, that general mindset is not just only for people who are in power dynamic or power exchange relationships. This is, I think, how all men should think for the relationships. Whether you're into kink or not, like it's irrelevant. I think that the men should be aware of their and think of their relationships in this way, that they want the best for it, and they actually have to have the balls to step forward and speak on things and know what and when to correct to keep things going well. And then you might be thinking, well, what if she doesn't take to being corrected? Well, then she's not following you. She doesn't trust you. She doesn't believe in you. She might have a different vision for the relationship. And and then you can either kind of calm down and then you become kind of like equalized. And we all know the dismal fate of egalitarian relationships. They just like with a democratic structure, it doesn't mean that it will die, like in terms of like breakups, but it will die internally. Because when you have things that are too democratic, you have no polarity. And without polarity, there's no spark. Without spark, there's no passion. Without passion, well, you're basically just roommates. And you could like go to like a school function, like a bunch of parents are there, like field day or a bake sale or something like that, and just throw a dart. Turn around, just throw a dart. You could hit any couple, and it's without a doubt they're going to be in a roommate type marriage, a roommate type situation, and without a doubt it's going to be an egalitarian sort of thing, without a doubt. Blindfolded throwing a dart, that would be really painful. I don't know, like I'm just imagining like someone having a dart stuck in their head at the bake sale. All right, so here's what most people fundamentally misunderstand about power exchange dynamics. Okay. The rules serve both people. They protect the submissive by giving her a clear container in which she can fully surrender. And she knows exactly what's expected. So she's never guessing. All right. Never managing, never waiting for the other shoe to drop, never falling into that mom energy or the vigilance. All right. They protect the dominant by ensuring the dynamic has genuine integrity, that it is a chosen and tended to structure, not just ego and impulse dressed in leather or a suit, right? It's mindful, right? It's mindful rules. Like that's the word. You have to be mindful within these type of relationships. Well, in any relationship you're in as a man, you have to be mindful. But it's even more so when you put clear definitions on lots of things. All right. And this, like, don't think that because somebody's in kink or somebody has a power exchange relationship that everything's hunky dory. Because the fact of the matter is that the vast majority of men are not calibrated and grounded. They have not faced their shadow. They haven't gone through the fucking work. They are still acting on impulse. They're still acting on ego. They're still acting on nice guy disorder. They're still acting on their rage that they have against their mom or their dad. Like all the regular bullshit that like regular couples have, like regular dudes have when they go into relationships, all that baggage that they bring in, their false beliefs, their hangups, their trauma, like all that stuff, that still exists in BDSM. Okay. So don't think like, oh, just because they're in the lifestyle, that means they're superior and they've got a better relationship. Hell no. Okay. Because it always comes down to what the human is going into it, whether it's a regular relationship or a lifestyle relationship. It doesn't matter. Like I've come across so many simpy doms. You would not believe how many simp doms there are where they're like, no, like power dynamics, the dom, he's actually not in control. It's the sub that's in control. Like, yeah, he like, and then he goes into like this whole like worship thing, right? I don't know any submissive, like a true submissive, who wants to be on a throne and worshipped. Like that would make them feel very uncomfortable. They're like I'm the help. What am I doing up here? And why are you, my lord, on your knees in front of me, like energetically? It's very confusing, and I see this stuff constantly, especially online. I'm not seen or experienced this in person, just like with the the DS like groups that I'm part of, well, that I was part of on Facebook and things like that. I left them because I just found them to be just like a bunch of losers, panderers, basically guys who are even more socially awkward than the regular guy, but also into kink and just like any girl who remotely is attractive or apparently single, they're just like wolves in a fucking hen house. It's well, that'll be coyotes, right? Coyotes in a hen house. It's terrible, and not viciously, but just inundating. Like she'll like post up a picture because sometimes they'll be like, oh, let's like show pictures, whatever. Like show a sexy picture, and the guys are just with any attractive girl, just like tons of stuff, just regular stuff. Same things you see with comments on Instagram and whatever. Same guys, but they're just in into power dynamics and kink. So don't so I say this to help you understand that it's not curative. Like this lifestyle is not curative. It actually makes the problems even more apparent. I mean, like if you've got like rage problems, okay, if you've got anger problems, like say towards your mother, it comes out in abuse in this lifestyle, like real physical abuse. Okay. Like harmed subs, like there's like groups that like tends to female subs who have been abused by doms who are basically just abusers because they've got fucking issues with their mom or dad or whoever like took care of them or whatever, and they're just taking them out in the lifestyle because there's this particular pathway. Like, yes, slapping is okay. Like, just generally speaking, like that's part of this world. Sometimes punching is okay. Using sticks, using whips, using floggers, using electricity, like that stuff happens. So you bring somebody who's got anger problems into that, it's just utter destruction. And then you've got submissives where they know what they are. They know the potential for the connection. They some of them have already experienced turning into liquid, and they're like, "Oh, I want to do that again." So they're almost like a little hungry, but also wary at the same time because they know themselves. They know it's capable, or what's capable of themselves, what's capable in the relationship, and so someone who comes in who's um, relatively trustworthy. It seems so. Okay. They're 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 because of the hunger, because of the knowledge that they have of what's possible, they're more easily drawn in, especially if he's like charming or good looking or something like that. It's a really, really common occurrence. But then at the same time, on the other side of things, and that's part of why I find this world that I'm in so interesting is that you'll come across some of the most fucked up people you've ever met in your life, like with emotional problems, psychological shit. Um, like you'd never, ever, ever in a million years want to even get close enough to share a beer with them. Okay. Then on the flip side, you'll come across some of the most intellectually brilliant people you'll ever come across. Like truly fucking enlightened. And you're just like, wow. And you can tell it's like because they've gone through like whatever the fuck it is that this lifestyle encourages you to go through, like internally. And they've done it and then like pushed into it and went deeper and deeper and harder until they just kind of like became whole and grounded and more self-aware and just brilliant. And then on top of it, like very well read, and you're like, holy fuck, like you are fucking smart and chill, like shit, right? So you have these extremes of people, and it's a very interesting world. Um, but I just wanted you to understand, like, just because of this lifestyle, it does not mean that the men that are involved are somehow more evolved than those who are not in the lifestyle. Okay. So, so the most corrosive mistake a man can make in these dynamics is being inconsistent with his own rules. Again, like you can think of this as I go through this in terms of a power exchange relationship or regular relationship. Okay. The most corrosive mistake a man can make in these dynamics is being inconsistent with his own rules. Establishing an expectation and then abandoning it when it's inconvenient or just forgetting about it is not good. Enforcing something one week and then ignoring it the next. That inconsistency doesn't come across as human or relatable. It comes across as weak. And a man who cannot hold his own structure cannot hold hers. This bears repeating. A rule only generates respect when it is upheld with equanimity, not with anger, not with lengthy justification, not with renegotiation, with calm, consistent follow through. The same way gravity works. It doesn't argue with you, it doesn't explain itself, it simply operates. And that quality, that calm immovability, almost the inevitability, is one of the most attractive things a man can cultivate. Not aggression, not volume, stillness with standards. And I think that I think I even told this. Like, when my submissive and I like first started talking, like towards the beginning, I think I told her that I'm inevitable. And I think I'd like, did I steal that from Thanos? But I didn't mean it in that like that egotistical way. Like I kind of wanted her to get a sense of that kind of like calm structure. And I think as she like got to know me, it became apparent that that the myself and the dynamic and her involvement in it was inevitable, because of just the solidifical like the solid structure of it in the same way that gravity is inevitable. So I'm like trying to take like these very like flowy concepts and put words to them. I'm tripping over my own tongue. But anyway, so rituals. All right, so this is the next part. So rituals are one of the most underrated elements in any relationship. And yet, if you look at the dynamics that produce the deepest bonding, the most unshakable sense of us, right? Rituals are almost always present. A ritual is any repeated, intentional act that carries meaning beyond its surface function. It's a behavioral or a physical symbol that says over and over again, this matters. You matter. I matter. We are something worth tending to. Um, Great examples. It doesn't even have to be elaborate because when we think of ritual, we think of some sort of like elaborate structure. And that's not it. Like imagine when you see, is it Catholics? When they go into church, right? They take off their hat, they walk to the pew, they kneel, cross themselves, and then sit in the pew. That's a ritual. Okay. And there's also all these, I mean, if you went to like if you've ever been to a Roman Catholic wedding, you'll see some long, drawn out rituals. Man, one of my best friends from a few years ago, he got married. He's Italian, Roman Catholic wedding, and it took so fucking long. That service was so long to get married. God damn. But yeah, so it doesn't have to be elaborate. It just has to be something that is done over and over again with consistency, with this idea that it's something that matters, that it's important, right? I think it's important when couples come together that they have a ritual that they do when they come together. It doesn't have to be uh, crazy, or it could be crazy. All right. You could add lots and lots of detail to it. Um, you could say, like, well, I want you like at the door, kneeling in lingerie with a gag in your mouth, holding my slippers like this, like a little puppy, you know, and waiting for me to come home. Like already be wearing your collar or something like that, or with the collar box sitting on the floor waiting to be put on. It could be like anything, right? Or it could be just as simple as, like, when I come home, I'd like you to take my coat, my bag if I'm carrying one, and then we come in and we hug, we touch our foreheads together for just like 10 seconds, and then it's like a symbol of, like, okay, I'm here now. This is being intentional about like what we're engaging in now. There was a relationship where I would come in, and she would take my right hand and she would kiss my palm. Like, that was the ritual. Before any kisses, before any hugs, she would kiss the palm of my right hand. And then I would, kind of, we together, we would kind of put it on her cheek, and then we would come in for like a kiss, a hug. But that ritual happened every single time I saw her. And that was our greeting ritual for our dynamic. The other one, like when I'm in now, she kisses the back of my hand, right? She kisses the back of my right hand. This is, and so like it could be elaborate, but it doesn't have to be, just a small symbol. Okay. And it doesn't have to be like a power exchange type of ritual, like how I'm describing. It could be something that's good for the both of you. And I encourage couples, if there's any couples listening to this, I encourage you to talk to one another. Like, if you're not, say, in a power exchange relationship, talk to one another and talk about this idea of greeting each other at the end of the day. Okay, whether you're both coming home from work, or one person's coming home from work, or whatever, or when just you are not living together, and say you whenever you see each other and there's been some time in between, talk about creating some sort of ritual that is like a symbol of the two of you coming together and being intentional about now this space, that it's like both of you are here now. And watch, if being consistent with it, watch the changes, because it will start changing how you start perceiving things, because basically what you're doing is you're creating like um you're creating a new texture. You're creating a new reframe simultaneously. Like, both people are creating this reframe of what's happening now, and it's a joint thing. So talk it over, right? If you're in a relationship or you're married or whatever, I encourage you to talk to each other and create a ritual, right? Or if you're a guy, like, just kind of make one on your own and just say, hey, this is what I'd like. How do you feel about this? Because you want her input, because you want her to feel something. Okay. Now, if it's like completely off the mark and she's like, that doesn't do it, get her input, right? Because it's not really about the act. All right. What's important is that you gain that emotional like turn on, that, I don't mean like arousal, but you get engaged, and you want her to feel engaged instead of just going through the motions. Okay. So, if that makes sense. So, in a general, so like I was saying, in a general relationship, rituals do not need to be elaborate. They often shouldn't be. All right. The power is in the repetition, not the scale. Let me just check this really quick. All right. Hey, Eugene Steele. What's up, man? Black pillars would probably have their woman call them my godly alpha giga turbo Chad. I might add that, right? Turbo daddy. That's what I want. Turbo Daddy. I think I'm going to do it. Have you heard about incels committing crimes to become attractive to women? They call it crime maxing. Yeah, I've also heard thug maxing. Hmm. Yep, I've heard. I was actually in a space on X, and this guy was talking about how, oh geez, what was it? It was like at a party or something like that. Was it shit, what's that party that just happened? And it's just this huge fucking thing that happens out in the desert in California. It just passed. Coachella. I think it was at Coachella. And he was like in the wrong place, the wrong time, or just like with other people, and he got grabbed and thrown in like just like soft jail for overnight. And he said like, yeah, it sucked. I think because like he was drunk or whatever, but now he's got that cred, like that's like on his record, and can kind of like flex, like, yeah, I've been in jail. You know? It's fucking serious. Yes, yes. Men are fucking cooked. Like, I'm so glad I'm not a 20-year-old in 2026. Like, fucking cooked. Like, no wonder nobody's fucking. Like that whole thing, like all these women are fucking out here. No, nobody's fucking. No one's fucking. The women are turned off. The men are fucking giving up. Like nobody is fucking. Um, you made me crazy. Yes, yes, I know what that's in reference to. Just kind of like going back, see if there's like any important messages here, questions um, before I go back to what we're talking about. Yes, my king. Yes, I like my liege. My liege. But anyways, so let's go back in here. All right, so talking about the power in repetition and not necessarily having to be elaborate in regular relationships. Okay, so it might be the way that he always greets her when she walks through the door, or how she greets him when he walks through the door. Fully present, phone down, actually there. All right, it might be Sunday mornings that belong only to the two of them. The specific way he takes her face in his hands before a long trip, the coffee ritual before the world starts, the particular words he says before they sleep. Okay, none of these are grand gestures. Grand gestures are actually one of the least effective tools for bonding, which is really weird because that's what nice guy syndrome dudes operate on. Like they think like if I just make it bigger, badder, more expensive, more elaborate, that will show her that I care a lot. And it actually does the opposite. Okay. And it's because they're episodic, right? It's too theatrical, and they happen and then they're gone. Okay. Rituals are different. It's about this like lower level um, thing that is recurring. It's recurring proof that the relationship is a living, tended thing. And over time, they do something remarkable. They wire the nervous system to associate being with him with safety, warmth, consistency, and significance. She doesn't just feel good around him occasionally. She has been conditioned in the best possible sense to feel at home in his presence. Without rituals, a relationship becomes transactional. You schedule the logistics, you coexist, but there's no texture to the bond, no recurring evidence that this is something sacred, something set apart. And without that texture, even a relationship that looks fine on the outside will eventually feel hollow on the inside. She won't be able to name what's missing, but she'll feel its absence. And on another note, um, this idea of like something sacred, I hear people talk about a relationship being sacred, right? All the time. Tons of like men and women. Okay. It doesn't matter what you say. It's how are you showing that it's sacred? And it's not with gifts. It's not with like, again, like having gestures. Okay. You have to look at the smaller things that are consistent because that's the thing that sets the texture of the relationship. You have to look at the things that are repeated all the time, right? Either like a couple times a week or every day or once a week. That you got to look at the things that are repeated. Because if you look at your life, basically, like the quality of your life is based around the habits that you have. And I'm not talking just about physical things that you do repeatedly. It's the thoughts that you think repeatedly, the feelings that you feel repeatedly. All of those habits in those three areas, they build the quality of your life. And it will determine whether you wake up feeling good that you're alive and that you get to do stuff and I know just live, or lamenting the fact that you're alive, resenting the existence that you have, feeling heavy, low, and slow, or angry. Okay. It has to do with the habits of thought, the habits of feeling, and the habits of body. So it's the same sort of thing. Like in relationship, you got to look at what habits are there. And that determines the texture, the temperature, the energy, the vibe, like as a foundational thing. Okay. Like the base foundational tone, right? Um, or like what key it's in, right? Like you don't want it to just be coexisting. And like I said, with that dart into the group of married couples at the fucking bake sale, right? They're coexisting. They're roommates. The vast majority of them. They're always referred to as my partner. Okay. Like I think I think if my woman had ever said that, I would just have to I would drop my head, my tail would go between my legs, and I think I would just pack my shit and go home. I can't hear that. I cannot hear it because it's just revealing of too many things that means it's wrong, that it's gone way off course. And it's too far. It's not just like don't use that word anymore. It means that the thought process is there to view things in that particular way. And if she's viewing me as a partner, as a this this egalitarian equal within this the structure that they have, right? Or that we have. Um I don't want any part of that. It means that I've failed. Like according to my own standards, according to my own visions of what relationship I want to be in. Like if I ever hear that, I've failed. And it might as well just pack my shit and go home. Like I don't care if it's been fucking 20 years. Like that comes out, it's like, oh fuck. All right, it's done. It's cooked. All right. So like I said, when this comes up in like regular relationships, there's not going to be like a word for it. Maybe they'll use roommates, but the more important thing is that she's going to be feeling it, that it's just not right. So in Dom subdynamics, rituals carry even greater weight because they serve an additional psychological function. They create and maintain a particular headspace. They mark the transition from the ordinary world into this type of intentional one. The ritual of kneeling, like when someone's in a trust bound, loving, power dynamic DS relationship, kneeling is no longer just kneeling. She's not kneeling from her body. I mean, she is, but she's kneeling from her heart. She's kneeling from her mind. And to be in that state is one of the most powerful things that she can do. It's actually an act of courage to have this symbol that says, I'm letting go of control. I am giving my will to you. I trust myself to you. I entrust everything that I am to you. And almost like a thank you and a reverence. And there's so much layers in just a kneel, but it's also like a state of peace because it's her saying, she's acknowledging, I'm done thinking. I'm done engaging with the world. And I am giving myself permission to let go of it all. Whether it's, like coming home from work and she's like, okay, put my stuff down or whatever. And he's already home, or she got a message, hey, I'm going to be home in 10 minutes or whatever. And boom, shoes off, like whatever. Maybe she quickly takes off all of her clothes because like, ugh, that's the world, I don't want that. I want the freedom of nudity. And then she's on her knees just waiting. And that's the gift she's giving to herself. Okay. Saying like this is the vacation, the respite, the pause into this other emotional dimension where I don't have to think about anything. I just have to feel. And I trust this man such that I know that those feelings are they're tended to, they're cared for, but not like in a pandering sort of way, in a containing sort of way. Basically, she's saying I can pour everything I am into him, and it's not going to leak all over the place, right? I don't have to manage myself. I don't have to manage my mind. I don't have to manage my emotions. I can really just exhale and relax, but not a leisurely relax from a state bound sense of relaxation. So there's so much to just kneeling. And unfortunately, I think for a lot of girls, they think of it in a completely different and wrong way. I think a lot of girls they see it as a sin, um, that they're I don't know violating themselves or letting the sisterhood down or I don't know what. But what I do know is that those who embrace kneeling for their men, or whomever they're with, right? Because there's definitely like women who kneel for female doms, that there is a tremendous amount of pride and release that comes from kneeling. And I wish more girls would understand that. I really do. Because I don't know a single submissive who's in a good dynamic who dislikes kneeling. I mean, except like if they're older and like their knees can't take it or something like that. But even still, the body's not necessary. It's something that happens inside, right? It's an act from the heart. But I've not heard a single submissive dislike the idea of kneeling. Not one. So the ritual of kneeling, the ritual of a collar being placed, where she like it's in a special box and she goes and gets the box and kneels and holds it over her head, waiting, or like in front of her chest, waiting. And then he places it on her. Maybe there's a small phrase, right, that's repeated every single time that collar is taken out and put around her neck, almost like someone like that little phrase when a ring is put on the finger during a marriage ceremony, like with this ring I thee wed, like something very simple and similar to that, just as a reminder to click on that state even more. Okay. Um, Putting it on slowly, deliberately with eye contact or without eye contact, casting her eyes away, which deepens a certain state, or looking at him in the eyes, which deepens a certain state. Okay, the ritual of asking permission to stand, asking permission to sit beside him, asking permission to touch him, asking permission to rub his feet or start a shower or pleasure him orally, um, or feed him or watch a movie, listen to music, even sit on the sofa, get in the bed, use the toilet. There's rituals can extend and extend and extend to bring more and more meaning through putting small ritual on practically everything. Okay. It just depends on like how granular the dynamic is. And not all dynamics are like that. Some are very relaxed and some are extremely tight. Okay. That's high and low protocol. So like I was saying, so the ritual of asking permission, of a using a particular form of address, um, of a specific act of service performed at the same time each day. These aren't theatrical. Okay, they're repeated acts of psychological and somatic transition. They move both people, body and mind, into the space where the dynamic lives. And there's a reason that every serious spiritual tradition on earth uses ritual. It's not superstition. It's neurological engineering. Ritual bypasses the analytical mind and speaks directly to the emotional and somatic body. when a behavior is repeated with intention and consistency, plus some sort of belief structure, it accumulates meaning. It becomes loaded. The act itself becomes a portal. Like, look at you. So many traditions, like the Buddhists. Like, if you look at like like the older forms of Buddhism, I think it was the Mahayana Buddhism that came out of Tibet. That was a the first spin-offs of Hinduism. So the spin-offs, first spin-offs of Hinduism was like early Buddhism, and it was just rife with deities and lots of ritual. It was very complicated, And then over the years and decades and or centuries, it eventually became extremely whittled down and to the point where we have like Zen Buddhism and a particular type of Buddhism, which is Soto Zen. So now the ritual is just sitting. Like Soto in Japanese just means sitting or just sitting. So like the ritual is still there, but it's so distilled. It's just sitting. There's no deities. There's no elaborate, ceremonies and shit like that. All you do is just sit. Okay. But it's just as loaded because there's belief behind it. Okay. And like all sorts of religions do this. Okay. So when a woman has a ritual, um, it becomes a portal, right? Something that belongs only to the two of them, that no one else in the world has access to or maybe even understands. It creates a private world, a shared mythology. And shared mythology is one of the most powerful bonding mechanisms that exist. I mean, like I'm more or less atheistic. Like I look at these things from outside and I'm like, because of this shared mythology between the believer and the system, it creates this incredible bond, right? Which we call faith. And I'm like, hey, no, everything's gonna work out okay because Zeus has my back. Okay. Like you see bumper stickers, like Jesus is my co-pilot. Um, the tremendous amount of faith in certain things, right? And it can even go to the point where people people go and do extreme acts, all right? Like we've seen stories of extreme acts of violence, okay, based around faith. But I'm also talking about people who go on these long treks. I forget what it was, where they just walking and walking and walking and walking for I don't know however many hundreds of miles, like on bare feet, to a particular like location or something to like say a prayer to a certain thing. I can't remember what tradition it was, some Eastern tradition, I think. But just stuff like that, that's amazing. Or I think there's a Buddhist one where instead of walking, that's what it is. They do full prostrations. Okay. So like a full prostration is when you're like lying on your stomach, like totally stretched out, and like the hands are like this, like in prayer, right? Your face is in the ground, and then they get up and then they do it again, and then get up and do it again. So they're like inchworming along doing these full prostrations to their destination. Yeah, like that's pretty extreme, right? Um, I mean, at least from my position, it seems extreme. All right, but that just it's about the power of the believed mythology, this shared mythology that's mixed with emotion that it produces incredibly powerful effects on people. And this is you're taking like sort of scaled down versions of these things when you place small rituals. They're just basically small, repeated things that have intention and meaning, and it creates a stronger bond. It creates that relationship mythos. So the man who dismisses rituals as sentimental, unnecessary, or excessive is the man who will one day wonder why his woman feels distant. Now, of course, if she's distant, there's going to be a lot more reasons, but this is surely one of them. Why she seems present but not there. She doesn't only want your time, she wants designated time, time with weight. right? Time she can orient towards, time that tells her that she is not an afterthought. Ritual is how you love someone on purpose again and again until love becomes structural. All right. And like I've built this into my relationship with particular mantras. And then these mantras have like certain layers to them that help her while also bonding to the relationship. So I've had her say like, what was it? It was part of a longer affirmation, and the one mantra, like the line within that affirmation, was the more I love him, the more I love myself. So it becomes this looping dynamic. Okay, like that line itself. So it's the love becomes part of the structure because now she's becoming reoriented. Okay, instead of just like, oh, this is love that I'm giving him, it has a meaning. It's not just this one directional thing, that it actually it like boomerangs back to me, that the better I feel about myself, the more I'm open and loving. So that just increases the structure. So now we arrive at the element that is probably most understood, most misunderstood, most misapplied, and most desperately needed, and that's authority. So let me first tell you what authority is not. Authority is not a loud voice. It is not a man who talks over everyone in the room. It is not manipulation, coercion, or restriction of freedom or force. It is not a man who tears down the woman in his life to make him feel larger. And it, that's insecurity in a costume. Okay. That's not authority. And it is transparent to anyone with a functioning intuition. Like we can always pick up on that stuff, even though that guy would deny it. It's really readily apparent. Like when a guy is like the performative masculinity, performative authority, it's clear to everyone but him. It's really wild. Real authority is gravitational. It is the quality a man carries that causes people around him to orient toward him naturally. It doesn't demand attention, it generates it. It doesn't require constant assertion, it simply exists. Like in the same way, like gravity doesn't explain itself, it doesn't defend its position, it just is. You feel it when he walks into a room. You feel it in the way he makes decisions, not impulsively, not reactively, but from a place of clarity about who he is and what he values. In general relationships, masculine authority manifests like this. He is the emotional thermostat of the household. When things get turbulent, when she's anxious, overwhelmed, or emotional, he doesn't match her energy to escalate. And he actually doesn't exert energy to calm her down. He gets calmer. He gets calmer. He becomes the ceiling, not the floor. His steadiness is not coldness or indifference, it's the gift of a regulated nervous system offered to someone whose nervous system is temporarily dysregulated. That's a profound act of love. But too many guys, they will either meet her turmoil or quickly try to snuff it out. And that's just going to make her feel squashed and unseen, unheard, and all that stuff that I know you guys have all heard before. In those times, you have to turn the throttle on your calmness. Like you have to like become more grounded, more calm, more relaxed when she is upset or angry or scared or anxious or whatever. A man who is emotionally volatile, right? More uncertain, more easily rattled than the woman in his life will not generate deep, sustained attraction from her. No matter how kind he is, no matter how much love he gives her, no matter how many of the right boxes he checks, or no matter how elaborate the gifts are that he gives her, or how tall he is, or how famous, or how hard his six pack is, it doesn't matter. This is not unfair. It is not a judgment. It's the erotic truth rooted in biology and psychology both. Women are wired to find stability attractive, because stability has always signaled survival. That wiring doesn't care about ideology. It operates whether we acknowledge it or not. This means that emotional regulation is not just a mental health practice for men, it is the cornerstone of masculine attractiveness. A man who has done the work to know himself, to manage his reactivity, to stay grounded under pressure, that man is not just more pleasant to be around, he is more desirable. Full stop. In dominant submissive dynamics, authority is not a feature of the relationship, it is the entire architecture. The dominant is to be acknowledged, is the acknowledged axis around which the dynamic rotates. His consistency, his judgment, his presence, and his care are what the submissive has chosen to organize herself around. She didn't arrive at submission because she's weak, broken, or confused. She arrived there because she has discerned, sometimes over years, through trial and error, that this man's authority is trustworthy enough to receive her full surrender. And surrendership is a process. It's not like this thing that either like happens or doesn't happen, okay? Because trust has depth to it. Trust has levels to it. And trust has levels to it. So trust and surrender are on a 1-to-1 ratio, okay? So if she trusts you at a certain level, that's the extent at which she can submit. And the more she trusts, the more she can submit. And there could be no ceiling to it. Okay. But that trust is all contingent upon how you're showing up. She's not going to trust you if you're untrustworthy, if you're inconsistent, if you're flexible, if you're volatile, if you're holding on to anger and fear and anxiety and judgment, all that stuff. It's just not going to happen. And I get it. I know it's hard. It sounds hard. It could take you years. So I don't blame guys who say, you know what, fuck it. I just want to get laid. Like, what's the fucking point? And the point is that you're living as just a partial man. Because there's something that there's something dormant within men that remains dormant as part of the expression of their masculine identity. Shout out to Miles. That becomes activated when there is another there. Okay. So like, just for clarity here, I'm a dominant. I can call myself a dominant, but I'm not accessing that side of myself until there's someone who is the submissive that creates that channel where I can express my dominance. And it's not just in the kinky BDSM stuff. It's a state of being. It's a series of thoughts and words, feelings, and actions that can only exist when there's someone there to receive them. And same with the submission. Someone can identify as a submissive, but they have to be within a structure. There has to be a container in which she can flow into. She might know that it's possible. She might say on the outside, oh yeah, that's me. I know that can happen. But until it does happen, that part of her remains quiet. So it's needed on both ends. So that's why this can take years, because it's not always just a simple, easy process. Some people are faster than others, but there's no real, like a master gauge. There's no determined idea of like how long this can take. So that means that this man's authority, when this happens, is trustworthy enough to receive her full surrender. And this is no small thing. That is one of the most profound gifts one human being can offer to the other. And it requires an equally profound standard from the man receiving it. A dominant who uses his authority to satisfy his ego, who leverages the dynamic for validation rather than for the elevation and protection of the submissive, will either lose her or hollow her out. Both outcomes are failures of leadership. Both are a betrayal of trust. The dominant who understands that authority is a responsibility before it's a privilege, who sees his role as holding the shape of the dynamic so so reliably that her surrender is the logical, natural response, that man builds something that most people never experience in a lifetime of searching. And here's perhaps the most important thing I can say: the man most worthy of a woman's surrender is the man who least needs it for his ego. He leads because it serves the dynamic, not because it feeds his identity. And if you go further, if you go deep in this, and I talk about this, well, in a different way, like with my two books, the Codex of the Sovereign Order and the Yielded Queen. Okay, the Annals of the Yielded Queen. That is about the archetype that you become. Like, so I'm no longer like Justin. Okay, within my relationship, I am more or less like an avatar that is a representation of a thing that belongs in a structure that's much bigger than I am. Or like in the military, okay, you can have like, Lieutenant Dan, all right? Dan is kind of irrelevant. Okay. What's most important is the lieutenant part, because you remove the lieutenant part and then there's just Dan, and then there's a big gap in that part of the structure. So it's not like of the utmost importance that Dan is there. Is the utmost important that the lieutenant is there and doing it right. That's the important part. Okay. Surely the individual kind of can color what that position holds. Okay. But the position, that avatar, is the most important piece. So, and that's what kind of happens. Like, if you take this lifestyle seriously and you start looking at your shadow, you start doing the work, you start kind of doing the things that your intuition knows that it needs to do in order to become more of what you are. Um, your sense of self starts thinning out, like who you were before everything started, and it just keeps going and going, and you realize that you're like the you is not all that important. It's more importance of like, what you do, how you show up, and for what reason. And the same thing happens with her. The submissive continues on, and the thing is that the within the structure, kind of going back to the title, within the structure, uh she also has a thinned out ego, a thinned out identity. Too becomes an avatar. She becomes a part of a process, and in that she learns freedom from herself. And to be fair, the Dom is also learning freedom from himself, but it's freedom from himself so he can lead better, and she is freedom from herself so she can follow better. And it's a very liberating position to be in. And again, like, it can take years to develop this, or it could take months. Like, depends on the person, depends on the amount of energy that they're putting into the work, and how much their issues and ego are resisting change. Because the ego really, really likes to stay where it is. It does not like change at all. It likes to maintain the status quo, even if it knows it's shit, even if it knows it's no good. At least it's familiar, right? Remember, the human mind does not like the unknown. It does not like things that are ambiguous. So it will stay with what's familiar, with whatever has sharp edges, even if those sharp edges are rusted. And people spend their entire life like this. So, this is why traditions, spiritual traditions, philosophical traditions, um, they're so valuable when done well, because I think that's part of the ultimate goal, is to get you away from the focus of me as this important individual, and that to understand that you're part of a larger process. And that's where I can understand it from like a philosophical and psychological standpoint, but that's where the religions kind of lose me, right? Because that structure is completely faith based. Like, you have to just believe that it's there and you're part of this bigger thing. Within like a dynamic, all right, you like everything's readily apparent. There's no magic. There's no mystery. There's no unknowns, right? In the sense of like, I don't need faith in this, right? I can see my woman. She can see me. The faith is not necessary because I'm here. Like we can touch. It can be verified. Um, but very similar like processes happen. And when, again, just like with the religion, when done right, when the right intention is brought into these things, and it can bring about with, I think, both aspects or both pathways is really just there for enlightenment to get out of to get out of one's own way, right? That's talking about the ego. When we say like, oh, you're standing in your own way, that's your ego, your pride, your plastic sense of identity. Okay. Remember the word persona is either like Latin or Greek or something like that. And it's a name for theater masks that they used a long time ago when there was amphitheaters and the actors were way, way, way down and the people up in the stands couldn't see them if you had like the cheap seats. So the actors, they had these enormous masks that they would hold up and had like the character's face painted on it. And then out of the mouth was a megaphone that was kind of built into the mask. Okay. And that mask was called persona. And that's where we get the name personality. So a personality is this mask that's constructed with a megaphone attached to it. So the whole thing is to try to get away from that, to thin ourselves out. But too many guys, when they come into this, they think, oh, Lord, oh, I'm called sir, I'm called Lord, I'm called, your grace, right? My king, my liege. And they think, oh, that's exalting me. That makes me more important. That makes me more special. It does, but it doesn't. Really, it's calling to a position that you are embodying. And like Lieutenant Dan, okay? Like when they're saluting, really they're saluting the position, not the individual. Sure, they might love that guy. They might have great respect for him. But when they're saluting, they're really saluting the position. They're saluting the whole structure. They're saying, I believe in this. Okay. So let me just read this section just one more time. Okay. The man most worthy of a woman's surrender is the man who least needs it for his ego. He leads because it serves the dynamic, not her, the dynamic, not because it feeds his identity. His sense of self is not dependent on her compliance, which is precisely what makes her compliance meaningful. She isn't submitting to fill a void in him. She is submitting to honor what he has built, what he represents. That distinction is everything. Rules create definition. They communicate. I know who I am. I know what I'm building. I'm not going to negotiate my character to earn your approval. That definition makes a man legible. And legibility is the prerequisite for trust. Rituals create meaning. They say, you're not a convenience in my life. You are something I tend deliberately every day. The act of returning to a ritual is the act of choosing the relationship over and over again. And that repetition, that consistency of choosing builds a bond that occasional grand gestures never could. Authority creates safety. It says, you can let go here. I will hold the shape of this. You do not have to manage me, mother me, or carry both of us at once. I have this. And that safety, real safety, earned safety, is what finally allows a woman to stop performing and start feeling. Whether you're in a conventional relationship or an explicitly structured power exchange dynamic, the principle is identical. The man who creates a container that is clear, consistent, ritual rich, and led with genuine authority does not just generate attraction, he generates devotion. Chaos repels desire because desire requires something to move toward. It needs a direction, a form, a center of gravity. A man without standards, without structure, without the willingness to lead, gives desire nowhere to land. So be somewhere, be someone, and hold a shape worth surrendering to. So if this resonated with you, share it with somebody, someone who needs to hear it. Um, and if you're catching this on the replay, leave a comment. If you have any questions, please go to the website, and you can send me an email right from the website, and we can tend to your questions. Or if you just want to chat, right, you can set up a call with me from the website as well. Yes. Well, presence creates authority. Okay, so authority must be presence. Your authority is a result of good presence, and it's like, it's funny because guys who indulged in the red pill, they thought that they were being liberated, and to a degree they were. Okay, it's not like 1000% bad, but it never gave him presence. And what it did is it kind of took one addiction and transferred it. That's all it did. And because the vast majority of red pill guys are dudes that are infected with nice guy disorder, or they just like resent women. All right, and this is common. Like, I know there's someone seeing this and be like, no, that's not true. That's not the real thing. And it's like, man, go on X, look up any red pill content, look in the comment section of red pill videos. It's filled with vitriol towards women. So it's absolutely true. It's way too common to ignore. But the thing is that the reason why I bring that up is that it's just pure focus on girls. And that's what the problem is. Okay. Like, so much attention is spent on figuring girls out. And it comes purely from a position of being hurt, frustrated, angry, right? There's pain behind these things. And then kind of like shouting from a mountaintop that they deserve to be followed, or that women should do this, right? And it's like, you're never going to get anything out of girls by proselytizing from a mountaintop. It's not going to work. You could have the most well-crafted message repeated over and over every single day from your, making a new post on X or Instagram or whatever, and it will do nothing, even if it's 100% correct. That's not how a man can affect women. It's not done from a pulpit. It's done face to face. And that's the reality of it. And so if you're tired of how things are, if you're frustrated, you don't like the shift that's happening culturally, you have to do something about it. And it has nothing to do with speaking on it. Like, shout out to Steve, don't talk about it, be about it. This is what's necessary. You have to be the thing, okay? And because when you say, I'm going to be the thing, you have to check yourself to make sure that you actually are, because if you think you're the thing while attempting to do what the thing does and you're not it, you're going to fuck things up even more. So maybe your instinct knows that you aren't the thing. And that requires you going to school, okay? It requires you having someone teach you or dismantle you and build you up, all right? And that's not a fun or easy process or fast. So it's like, men, you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. And so it's like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It's a catch-22. No matter what choice you make, you're going to suffer. However, the path I just described is a path of suffering that leads to freedom. It leads to liberation. And it's a liberation from yourself, from the attachments that you have from your own beliefs. That's it. But these things are slow moving. It's a slow moving process. Okay. You're not going to get it overnight. There's no like injectable that's going to make this happen. Okay. There's no there's no hammer that you can hit yourself with that's going to make it happen. Nothing. There's no mantra that you can memorize. Like I said, my guys are with me for months on end, sometimes upwards of 3 years, depending on like how desperate their ego is to hold on to their feeble fucking beliefs and their ultra important feelings, or just the it's so weird. Like some guys are just they're so committed to feeling like shit. It's a weird thing. They're committed to suffering. And under no circumstances are they going to listen and do what's necessary. They're going to fall back on old habits again and again and again and again. They just love suffering. Maybe you just get yourself a dominatrix so she can bring structure into your life and you can still suffer. And if you're good, she might let you come. But I bet tons of guys would be into that. Tons. But again, catch 22, not going to let yourself do that either, because that's like being a fucking cook, right? That's being a simp. That's being not manly, when it's like half of you guys don't even know more than half of you guys don't even know what the fuck being manly is. You guys are so fucked right now. Your brains are rotten. You've rotted your brains. And all you have are just the symbols, like these visual symbols. You're like, oh, that looks masculine. That looks, and you start like kind of like linking them together, like Legos, without the plan, without the book that comes with it. You just kind of like putting shit together and like, yeah, that looks like a manly man thing, right? That's me. And this is why there's all the performative shit, right? Like there's, the like the gym maxing shit, the looks maxing shit, like all of the maxes across the board. Okay. It's all performative masculinity to create an image, a shape that you could possibly convince yourself of and perhaps sell to others that like, this is what a man is, because you like are clueless on actually what it is, what it feels like, because no one's shown it to you, because you, I don't know, grew up without a father, because your own father was a fucking wet towel. Like nobody really showed it to you. And now in this image-based culture of social media, you're just like, well, let me just construct something that like looks like the right thing. That couldn't be further from the truth, because it's literally a state. That's what it is. It's a state. What's the definition of a state in psychology? So in psychology, a state refers to a temporary condition. I would say temporary or permanent condition of the mind or body, something that fluctuates over time depending on circumstances, environmental, or internal processes. It's easiest to understand by contrasting this with a trait. A trait is relatively stable and enduring, like being generally introverted or extroverted, whereas a state is a transient and situation dependent. Is transient and situation dependent. Now, what I'm saying is, whatever causes the state to kind of come about, you make that consistent, so the state remains consistent. So you're constantly in state. So I hope that, so like, for example, like, because there's good and bad states, feeling anxious before a presentation is an example of an anxiety state. Feeling calm after a workout is a relaxed state. Being highly focused for a short period is a state of attention or flow. All right. States can be emotional, cognitive, or physiological. So what I'm talking about is a psychological state. Sort of cognitive, but like a mix of cognitive and emotional. And and this is what you can cultivate. Okay, it's a state of mind. It's a way you show up to yourself, a way you show up in the world, the way you show up with other people. And it's, guys who don't understand that, they try to manufacture, the their end result. Okay, because surely guys who have the right state, there is some sort of like visual, like you can look at them and be like, okay, he looks like this, he's doing this. And then the idiot goes, if I just copy what he's doing, what he's wearing, what he does and where he goes and the things he has, then I can just be like him. I can be, that means I'm like him. And it's like, no, no, no. The things that you're seeing or hearing is a result of his state, which is a result of the control he has of his mind based around having principled living, by adhering more to his codes, the faith that he has in his own personal constitution. Or some guys, they kind of extend it into religion. They kind of bring that in as like the set of rules and structuring that helps control his state. Okay. So, hey, kitten. Good to see you. We're at the end here, but I don't know if you've been watching this whole time. But yeah, it's like, you guys, like, you got to stop like looking for things to copy. And the best place for you to be, honestly, is for you to sit there and say, I really have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. I don't know who I am. I don't know what a man is. I don't know how to become a man. I don't know what it means to me or anyone else. I don't know. This is the most grounded and an intellectually honest position you could possibly be in, because your ego and your emotions are going to want to push against that. Like, no, you can't admit that you don't know. You have to know, because you're a man. Like, you got to know what you are. And then if you follow that line of thinking, you're going to start making shit up. And then there's going to be a moment, I promise you, where all of that is going to become very apparent, that you are not that thing. Something's going to happen in life, and you're going to realize, I've been lying to myself for a long time. I have no idea. I haven't had any idea this entire time what the fuck I am. I just wasted X amount of years with nonsense when I should have looked for help. But that's their ego again, your pride. I can figure this out. Oh, that's not complex. The fuck it is. If it was simple and had an easy answer, I would be out of a job. But I'm still here. And there's a number of men who are like me who are still here. So, what is it? Is there something going on outside? No. Just some noisy neighbors, I guess. Afrin. Living by clearly defined honor and integrity and core values, and not primitive instinct alone. Yeah. Yeah, the instincts are good in the sense that they can like read stuff, but living by them, that's the dangerous thing. Like, that's being too close to being an animal. Right? Like, we're still mammals, yes? Warm-blooded, not born in an egg. Right? It'd be crazy if humans were born in eggs. That'd be wild. But yeah, we can't. We have to kind of be more than that, right? And that's the difference between like the males and men. Is men say, I need to be more than just my instincts. I need to be more than just my desires for myself. Like, there's like, I have a vision or an appeal towards something that says like, I don't want to be just a step above an animal, where I'm just kind of running from fear, running towards pleasure, like dealing with anger, fighting off this, dealing with that, fucking over here, eating over there, and it's just all very animalistic. Okay, and to be fair, this is the vast majority of males. Right? You might have like a high-minded view of yourself, but if you look at the behaviors, the habits, like I was talking about habits, you look at the functioning, what gets the attention, where is the energy going on a regular basis? It's nothing about CPRs. The main attention is not brought here. First off, knowing what they are, and then doing one's best to live through them. Because you're not going to. You're not going to, just because you fucking write out the Constitution doesn't mean that you're going to be perfectly living by it from that point on. Okay. It's just like any other tradition, right? The Christians, they've got their 10 commandments. And from what I've been told, there's actually like a fuck ton more than 10. But the idea is not like that you're going to live to them perfectly. The idea is that you strive to, right? The Buddhists, they have the Eightfold Path. Just because they're Buddhists and they know what they are doesn't mean they do them perfectly every time, every single day, right? It's something to strive towards, to constantly remember, like, no, this is important to me. I believe this is what keeps me on the straight and narrow, because the path of least resistance makes the river crooked. So I have to remain straight. And what keeps a man straight is having a belief in something that's bigger than he is. Be it God or religion or your own constitution, but you have to answer to something, and you actually have to fucking believe it. Okay, because that's what creates conviction. Okay, and that's not with big emotions. Conviction is actually something very grounded. It's true belief. True belief is really fucking quiet. It's like a stone pillar. There's no loudness to true belief, right? Because what the fuck he's speaking for? What's the point of making any noise? There isn't. Okay. The most doubtful things will have tons and tons to say. The man with doubt can't stop talking. The man who's certain is silent. The man who doubts himself constantly talks about himself. I'm this, I'm that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. The man who's certain has nothing to say. His actions speak for him. Makes sense, right? And women can pick this up. They can just see what you are. Now, of course, there are some very good charlatans out there. Guys who have learned to kind of game that system and trick women to believing that you're something else. You're not what you actually are. And there's guys who've become very, very good at this. Thankfully, that's not the majority, right? Because, well, frankly, that's just as bad as what guys are. This nice guy, sneaky do-gooder. It's like, get the fuck out of here with that fake goodness. No, you're not good. A man is neither good nor bad. He's just a man. And it's, goodness, badness, it all depends on the angle that you're looking at. Okay. The question is he real? Is he afraid or unafraid of himself? Has he looked at his demon in the face and realized that it's just him looking back? Just an aspect of himself. There's nothing to be afraid of or angry at or dissociated from. Is to be accepted, embraced even. And with that good guy, man, no, there's no demon. That's just a shadow in the corner. Don't worry about that. All the while, that demon's got strings around his wrists and ankles, making him do all kinds of weird shit. All right. But the thing is that when you kind of approach your darkness and you accept it It doesn't mean you keep them, you keep it forever. It doesn't mean it never changes. But right now, today, as it is, you accept its existence. And that prevents those strings from happening. It's when you deny that you have darkness, that you have skeletons in your closet, you got things that you're not proud of, things that you want, that you judge. Okay. Like I've got some interesting kinks. And many years ago, I used to judge them. I used to say that that's fucked up. You know, when I was like arriving to myself, and my demon was like, "What do you mean they're fucked up? Like, you're me. I'm you. What are you talking about? You know, you're just saying you don't like yourself. What do you mean I'm saying I don't like myself? You just said it. But it's coming to terms with that. And but it doesn't mean that like I said, that it's all going to stay the same. All right. But in order for things to change in any way that's not appealing to you, you have to acknowledge what is right now. Like you can't blow smoke up your own ass and be like, "Hi, everything's fine." You know, like well, you've got like all these fucked up things going on in your life, and your therapist's like, "Hey, bro, like you got some shit to work on." You can't be like, "Nah, it, I'll be all right. I think I'm going to go get a second opinion and pretend that it's not there." Okay. When the results in your life show destruction, it shows, you know, a repeated pattern of you being tense, you having anxiety, you having anger, you feeling just a shit tension in your gut. You're not sleeping well. Okay. Your health is declining. Your skin looks like shit. You know, all sorts of stuff. Okay. Like these, you know, these things, you know, the world, and like I said, like women are like the world and women are like a mirror. The world is a mirror. Like everything kind of comes right back to you. Your internal state gets reflected. And so like if you never see you never see like an excellent guy, right? Where you know he's like, man, like I don't know if you ever met like an excellent guy. I've met two really, really excellent people. Okay. There's not shit things happening in their life. Granted, they're not like soaring through the clouds with this, you know, crazy lifestyle or anything like that. I don't mean that. But there's no shit in their life. They're not trying to decide between this shit sandwich or that shit sandwich. Okay. Just great people. And of course, like nobody lives a perfect life because there's plenty of things in the world that we don't have control over. But the right, like vibrations, like their frequency is different in the sense that it changes what happens outside. And you don't see somebody like who made a ton of shit decisions with like a great girl on his arm. It just doesn't happen. Like you know, in my neighborhood, like there's like a lot of not a lot, but there's like a number of like crackheads. Okay. Like you never see them with someone who's not like them. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not walking with like somebody who's like great, got their shit together, they're healthy, they're happy, they're strong. Like you don't see that pairing. Never. So it's like the world will reflect to you what's going on, but your ego gets in the way. Right? The ego is like, no, I'm great. Everything's stupendous over here. Nothing's wrong. It's the world that's fucked up. That is the reason why my world is not great, right? Kind of like displacing responsibility, displacing accountability, displacing the mirror effect of the world, displacing the mirror effect of women. No, there's nothing wrong with me. Girls are fucked up. That's why I'm not in a great relationship because all the women are trash. Because hypergamy ruins them, which might be true. Okay. But you have to put your feet in the fire. because it doesn't matter what's happening there. You can't affect that. You cannot, like, if you're one of these weirdos who like wants to, I don't know, criticize and do away with hypergamy and thinks it's fucking, like the devil's doing or whatever, it doesn't matter because you can't affect it. Like, you can't make it go away. You can't like vote it out of existence or pull some lever and poof, it's gone. Okay. And whatever females like in mass are doing, you can't do anything about it. So stop your like pull up your pants, wipe your nose, stop paying attention and crying about all that bullshit that's happening over there, and turn all of that attention into the mirror. And then, like, what am I doing? Okay. I think a lot of guys, they're either going to be faced with pain, they're going to be faced with anger, or they're going to be faced with confusion, which will lead to pain and anger. They're going to say, I don't know myself. I don't know what to do. Like, they take all that attention, all this attention on girls and women and what they're doing and hypergamy and feminism and the government and marriage and blah, 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 like all the shit that they fucking talk about incessantly. Okay. And then take all that energy, which is doing fuck all. Okay. And turning it towards the mirror and saying, okay, let me just fucking put the blinders on. Let me lock in. What do I do with me? And I think most guys would say, I don't fucking know. I have no clue what to do. And that's going to lead to existential panic, which is exactly what you want. That's exactly what you want. And then you have to sit there in that tension. Don't run. Don't distract. Don't cry. Don't do anything. Sit in that tension because that's your nervous system growing up, becoming from a boy's nervous system into a man's nervous system. That's not going to like happen just like boom right then and there, but you're starting the seed. You're starting to massage it into a different direction. You're not going to come up with an answer, but you have to start in these small places. The small places where your psyche can just handle looking at yourself and going, I don't know. Because after a while, that the emotional weight of that I don't know gets lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. And then you're fine. Like, I don't know. And that's actually this is the funny part, because that process of getting lighter and lighter is actually a result of you digging deeper into yourself, not being afraid of asking certain questions, not being afraid of where your mind goes, not deflecting with this excuse or whatever, like really staying like focused, right, on yourself. If there's on my Substack, I talked about this, about how what's it called? Descend? I think it was called Descend or Descent. Look for it. Substack / the Dominance Academy, something like that. And it's about how a man's throne is not high up on a mountain. It's actually subterranean. It's deep, deep down into the darkness. And it's a process of excavation to get to it. You have to dig deep down. That's where your throne is. Amongst the fossils and the skeletons and the darkness, and like you get comfortable in there, that's where your throne is. You're not exalted up on this high mountain, right? But it's full of power because you're not moved by anything anymore. Once you face the creepy crawlies in yourself, whatever sort of judgments, and you realize it's all fabrications. You've been scared of just dancing shadows on the wall. And one of those shadows was your sense of self. And once all it gets thin, you like such a tremendous weight gets lifted. A tremendous weight gets lifted. When you get to this point where you're like, I don't know. I don't know who I am. And it's not like a big deal. There's no emotional gravity to that. It just is. And then at that point, you now have the great privilege and freedom to start reconstructing of what it is the fuck that you want yourself to be. Because you've worked through the ego and pride and attachments and beliefs about yourself, the trauma, like all that trauma belief and the tethers that hook into what you thought is an identity. All that's become thin or non-existent. And so now you have the freedom of movement, because those restrictions are no longer there, to then just kind of brick in like what it is you fucking want. Because that's why this is hard for people. That's why you keep coming back to YouTube and be like, oh, let me see like how to do this with the girls, how to say this as such and such man, or confidence, or charm, or like all the shit that you guys fucking look at. Okay. You keep coming back because of the resistance that has to do with the crap that you've not faced, that you're still holding on to, that you think you can just ignore and then just pile on these new things and hope that they'll stick and change that stuff. It doesn't work that way. That's like having like a house made of wood and the wood is like rotting, because that's just what happens to wood over time. And you think, okay, if I just paint it a new color, like with a few coats of paint, then that will stop the wood from rotting. But that's not how it works. Or like say like rust on a body of a car. I'll just kind of paint over it. No, the oxidation process is going to continue to eat at the steel. Just because you took away oxygen because you covered it with paint doesn't change the chemical processes happening there. It's not how it works. And that's that. And then the guys they go further and further and further to maxing this, maxing. Now they're adding tons of layers on top of that. As a compensation, now it becomes performative. Now we have the performative masculinity. Because now you've taken that house that you put lots of paint on, or the car with the rust, and you've fucking bedazzled it. You've added fucking sparklers. You've added LED lights. You've added fucking, pulleys and winches and this and that. And like, it's got all this fucking crazy shit, right? Which would be, to get away from like analogies, which would be the gym maxing, the fucking fast, like face bashing maxing, and whatever the fuck else. Okay. Thug maxing, drug maxing, all that stuff. All right. It's all just performative to get away from the fact that the wood is rotting, that the steel has rust. It's all a desperate attempt to fool yourself. And it's like, all right, if I can fool others, then maybe I'll start believing them. If I can fool others, maybe I'll start to believe them about me. But you never will. That's why you keep doing it, why you keep going. It's fucking silly shit. And now you've just double, triple, quadrupled your work. Because then you got to take all that shit off, scrape the paint just to get to the wood, when you could have just started there. You could have just said, I don't know, and dealt with the anxiety that comes from that, dealt with the tension that comes from that. And because here's the thing, kind of like circling back a little bit to the lecture and the effect that it has on women. Part of the reason why girls are so easy for me and guys who share my similar understanding is because ourselves are easy. Because developing a tolerance for the tension that comes from women, like the states they get into and this behavior and that mindset and this emotion and blah, 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 blah. All of that stuff actually exists in you as well. It just kind of shows up differently. But it's the same like ingredients. So you face these things on your own, and you condition yourself, and then you develop, I guess, like a tolerance for it, and now you're no longer reacting. You become more centered, more grounded, more relaxed. Okay. And so like if there's tension, you're not thrown off your square. If there's a thought, you're not thrown off your square. If an emotion comes up, you're not thrown off your square. If you observe a behavior that you do, you're not thrown off your square. Okay. And then that becomes the standard. That becomes the precedent. You set the precedent by dealing with yourself on these things. Okay. Then when the woman does these things, it's even less. It's less impactful because it's not you. You know, dealing with your shit is much more impactful or like intense than dealing with a woman's shit or her behavior. Okay. Because there's that delay, there's a space. There's like me, her. Okay. With you, it's like you and you. It's like you're sitting right on top of it. So her behavior, whatever she's fucking doing, she's complaining or worrying, or even she's happy. Okay. Doesn't matter. Like you can be thrown off by joy as well. Joy can rip you right the fuck off your square. Elation. All right. Pleasure. These things can absolutely pull you off your square. So don't be fooled. I'm not saying don't enjoy shit. Just be aware that it can pull you off. So just be mindful and not take things too far. But like I said, women become easy at this point. They're no longer this challenge. They're no longer this thing that you like have to figure out. That like the manosphere just seems to be just fucking obsessed with girls. And like my students, many of them are coming around to realizing that the more they understand themselves, the easier it is to understand women. And you don't even have to like think about like their why or how or what, none of that stuff. I mean, really, it's mostly whys. Like, why does a girl do this? Why does she say this? And then they realize, like, oh, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to figure out the why. Because, like, at that point, like, all the attention is shifted to you. Your why is much more important than her why. With any choice that you make, any thought, word, or action, your why is 100 times more important than her why. One hundred times more important. So most guys, they have it switched. And that's why these guys who spend so much time studying girls, studying their behaviors, you know, the female nature, nothing's different for them. Nothing. The guys will they will yes. Yep, absolutely. There it is. Yep. Descend. He who would master the heights must first kneel at the depths. Yes. Um yeah, that like those guys who know so much, who've really exposed, right? They treat it like an exposure. Like girls are like trying to hide, like they're like trying to hide their behavior. Like don't want to see me. I'm trying to sneak around with my female nature and get away with it. But that's how these guys treat it. Like she's trying to get away with shit. We caught you red-handed. You and your hypergamy. I mean, right like the end of Scooby Doo or something. Like I wouldn't have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you damn kids. This ain't Scooby Doo, guys. You're not gonna fucking take her mask off and find the sheriff underneath. It was him all the time. Oh shit. Anyways, with all this great knowledge of the female nature, you notice that their lives are not any better or different. They're just in a further state of tightness and frustration, a little bit of anger, right? Bitterness, I would say, not anger, but bitterness. And it comes out in all of their content, all of it. And they're going to deny, and they'll be, oh, no, I love women. Which might be true, but the fact is you fucking hate yourself. That's what it is. You can't stand yourself. And that's the root of all of this stuff. All of it. From top to bottom. It just, the root, it just comes from self-hate. That's what it is. So when you start shifting gears and start doing that kind of not so fun stuff that I was talking about a moment ago, okay, that's actually giving a shit about yourself. That's actually putting some attention and awareness. Just like I was talking about the dynamic, right? When I was talking about girls, there's some girls that I'm with and I'm like, I'm not going to pay attention to them much because I just know, right? They're not going to get my focus. They're not going to get my I'm not going to get out the fine tooth comb. Okay. But when I care, that fine tooth comb comes out. I look at your fucking breathing patterns. I'm not really, but I'm exaggerating. But I look at all the behaviors. I look at what words come out of your mouth, what habits you have, how your posture is, what the gait of your walk, your eating habits, your sleeping habits, your speech patterns, your tone, your mindset, your emotional states, all the fluctuations of that shit. That's when I care. So if I'm doing that over here, why am I not doing it over here? And I know that if I do it here very well, it'll have a tenfold effect over there because this is harder. Girls are easy. Girls are so easy. You have no fucking clue. And it just seems hard because you're getting in your own way. Your sense of self, your ego, like all of that bullshit, your beliefs, your feelings that you think are fucking true. You're like, guys are like hammering railroad spikes through their feet in the ground so they don't move from their beliefs. That like this red pill shit is fucking true. It's true. And it's just a root of basically it becomes like this plausible deniability or what's confirmation bias. That's what I was looking for. It's like there's a lot of confirmation bias, which prevents one from moving because it gives you an excuse to stay still, not do shit, and just criticize and give like reasonable ideas of like oh, I'm not doing that because look at the marriage statistics. Well, I know a number of guys who those statistics would definitely not apply. And no, they're not over 6 feet tall. No, they're not famous. No, they're not rich. They have fucking presence and they know how to lead. That influence completely supersedes, is that the right word? All the bullshit that manosphere guys are concerned with. They think that stuff is unassailable. That like, hypergamy is unassailable. Masculine presence and influence and identity completely dissolves it. I don't believe you. Well, of course you wouldn't, because you are married to your beliefs. You're married to suffering. You want to suffer. You want to be right so bad so that you can stay right where you are. Congratulations. You won. Cheers. But you can't ignore that nagging sensation that you don't like it. You're unhappy. You're unsatisfied. It feels like an empty win, doesn't it? It's an empty fucking win. You've won nothing Because what you really want, well, on a more deeper level, you just want to be noticed. You want to be cared for. You want someone to fucking pay attention about your existence. You want someone to care about your existence. And the reason why that is because you just don't care about your own. So you need the supplement. You need someone else to do it for you because you don't believe. You don't believe in you. You don't believe that you have a desire to exist or a care for your own existence. You don't believe it. So you need reassurance. You need some sort of validation because you're full of doubt. Right? You're basically using girls like joint compound. That's what you're using girls for. But the thing is that when you come around, you do all the crap I was talking about. They give you the things that you were once seeking, but now you don't need them, nor do you care. It's just a very, if there was a God, he is a very, I would say he must be a trickster God because there are so many very, very funny ironies in existence. Very, very funny. So he's certainly not a serious God. He's a trickster God. Like, yeah, I'm going to give you everything that you once desired, but only after you surpass yourself. And when you get there, you're no longer going to care for the things that you desire, but you'll have it all. That's my kind of God. But it's funny. It's really funny. You know, like surely I love the way my woman treats me. I love the way she thinks about me and her behavior in the sense that like I very much appreciate and approve of her behavior, the way she thinks, the way she feels towards me. Okay. But it doesn't it's and I know it just feels like I'm breathing. Like there's no like, oh my gosh, this air tastes like fucking strawberries. Right? It's just me breathing. Like, what does air taste like? No, you don't think about it. It's just there, you know? And it's not that I'm taking for granted. She has my fucking attention. Like I said, fine tooth comb. But there's no emotional shift. There's no state change. There's no shift off my square. And it's I don't know. It's enjoyed, I guess, but not in the way that one typically enjoys something, right? Because usually when you're enjoying something, there's some sort of like emotional gratification involved. There's none of that. But the funny thing is that the love that I have for her is, I don't know, greater than many years ago when I thought I knew what love was. It's a strange, strange thing. I guess the closest thing is I heard from the Christians, um, where what did they say? Like the way the way Christ loves the church in that sort of way. Like there's this, there's love, but it's not like romantic. It's a weird, different thing. It's bigger, but also thicker. Romantic love is thinner and smaller and faster moving. What's this here? Your square is like an omnipotent viewer, but you're the self that's seeing you see yourself in the world. Yeah. hmm Guns. I love when Guns pipes in because it's not often, but it's always on point. Males love the outside and the addicted to incompetence, which infects until it becomes disease. Yep. Men build impenetrability. Here, failure is not corrected and is removed. Yeah. But here's the thing. I don't want people to misunderstand. this, okay? This impenetrability. This is not active resistance, okay? The mountain is impenetrable, but it's not fighting against anything. It doesn't exert against, okay? Because that just strengthens that which comes at it. The mountain is just still. So the impenetrability comes from stillness, all right? Need you to understand that. Now, should everyone be taking notes tonight, then running this one back for more notes? But this episode lesson should be watched at least once a month. I appreciate that. Yes, right. Thank you for the quote. You see, I would be such a terrible Christian. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. So yes, I was looking at like how Christ loved the church, because it's not a romantic love. It's a greater kind of love. Okay, husbands, love your wives. Yeah, so it's not this romantic thing. It's not like at the eye level. It's not the heart level. It's something higher that spreads wider. And it's much thicker, like a heavy blanket. Thank you for that quote. Appreciate you. But yeah, there's so much to be had beyond yourself. It's just funny because it's like, I could talk to you about it and you're like, oh, that sounds great. I want to get to work. But it's just really funny because you come to the other side and you no longer really care because you're it. Like, you don't have the things, like you are the thing. Before you start, you think it's something you can acquire to have, but then it becomes you, and then you're like, oh, okay. Like there's nothing special about it. It's just a weird thing. I don't know. All right, I'm gonna start getting really strange in a moment. So we're gonna call the show. We're gonna pull this one to a close. But it was a good one. We covered a lot of stuff. So yeah, if you need to take notes, cool. If you have any questions, just set up a call, right? It's a free 30 minutes with me. And we can chat about whatever, if you want me to explain anything, or you just kind of want to share whatever's going on in your life, babble. We can, drink coffee together over the call. I don't really care. And we can do it that way. Otherwise, go to the dominancecademy.com, go to the tutorial section. There I've got for sale, a range of different topics, single topics, right? Not like this where we fucking ramble and tangent and twist and turn and morph into all kinds of crazy shit. It's one topic, very focused from top to bottom, and it's very clear, okay? With a wide range of topics and more things. And if anybody has any thoughts about what topics that you'd like me to work on, you think that something belongs in there, or you'd like to hear more about, feel free to send me an email with that suggestion. And if I think it fits the story, the story that I'm building with all those tutorials, I will definitely include it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to hear from you. Okay, that's it. We're pulling this one to a close. Thank you, everybody, for joining me here on this live, and thank you for watching on the replay. We'll see you on the next one. Take it easy.